Jason. So the last of our panellists, Professor Michael Pennymint. Michael is born in Adelaide, has spent much of his career here in South Australia, although has spent some time working overseas. He's got 3 children. I think he was quite pleased to get out of soccer this morning, am I right, on a very cold morning? You missed a good game. He's the Director of Radiation Oncology at the Royal Adelaide Hospital. So he's in charge of radiation therapy for patients, but also for the health and safety of members of his team who work with radiation therapy, and gives advice on the siting of radiation therapy facilities, especially with our new RAH. I can hand over to you now, Michael. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much. Actually, I'm starting to feel, thanks to Jason for that last slide, because I actually know what you're going through, because I've worked in radiotherapy and radiation for 30 or so years and have no fear about radiation when it's done in an appropriate way, and we'll talk about that, but I don't like roller coasters, so I can appreciate, that if there's, you can do things right, but you can have fixed false beliefs. And I think normally when I start a talk I would say thanks for inviting me, and I mean it, but I really meant it today, because I think for quite a long time I've been watching this debate, and I felt, and as per my colleagues, that we're doctors that are trained in the safe use of radiation and the applications for, to cure cancers and to do a number of diagnostic tests, and yet I don't feel like we've had any voice to actually explain some of the things we do in a fairly impassionate, straightforward way. In regards to the other point that Jason made, was he obviously went to a lot of fabulous places around the world to look at radiation facilities, but I know you guys are going to have a lot of questions of us, and so I thought I'd start off maybe throwing one back to you. I don't know if anybody knows where that is and what it could be. Oh, it's right. It's on your sheet. Well, thanks very much. That was, yeah. It's actually. But the one extra thing, it is indeed in the basement of the Royal Adelaide Hospital, and that's just down the road. My office is actually directly above that, so I've been sitting. I mean, I do walk around the hospital a bit, but I've spent a lot of time sitting in my office just above that for over the last many years, and I'll get the technology right. Oops. Nope, you've seen that many times. Oh, it is tricky, isn't it? Yeah. Now, in that room, as you can see, if you have that, in essence, it is a low to medium activity radiation waste dump. And inside that room, you can see that it's very well controlled. You might be able to see, probably not up the back, that it's got a very important sign saying danger radioactive. It's got some locks there. Now that's pretty typical of what we do with our low-level nuclear waste at the moment, and such that I'm not quite sure where to point this. There you go. So that's, as you can see, we're in the SAMRI building that's pretty much in the centre of that. The New Royal Adelaide Hospital's off to one side, the new medical school's off to the other side, and in the middle is a building that I'm particularly interested in, which is sort of over there, that hasn't been built yet, which hopefully will be the site of the only proton therapy facility in the Southern Hemisphere, which is an amazing opportunity for us to take our treatment of cancers, in particular in paediatric cancers, to be the really the leading cancer centre in the Southern Hemisphere. Now, okay, so amongst that, yes, there are some. There we go. Oops. Did everybody see that? Sorry. Yeah, there you go. Look, that's just a bit of an insight into where I know there's some low-level and medium-level waste dumps. We're building one in the Royal Adelaide, the new Royal Adelaide. There's one in the cyclotron below us. We will certainly build one next door when we do the proton therapy. The new med school will definitely have it. Most medical facilities, most universities will have a storage facility for low and medium-level waste. Our facilities at the old Royal Adelaide, when we looked to our waste and looked at what we had plutonium legacy sources, we had cesium rods from blood irradiators. Some of those things fall well above low-level waste in terms of they have long half-lives, they emit gamma rays, and they have to be cared for very carefully. Indeed, when we're moving, some of those isotopes will be, in fact, sent to Germany. It'll cost a lot of money for a very small box, about 150,000 to send a small box of waste away. So I think that we are very used to dealing with these radioactive sources, and how we deal with them is something that's well into my remit. And what isn't in my remit is being able to make this work well. That's the New Royal Adelaide, the hot lab, which is where we'll store and use radioactive sources, radioisotopes, also iridium seeds for inserting into cancers. Prostate therapy is one where we'll use radioactive seeds. All those things will come through the hot lab, which probably most of you will think looks like a room, and that's because that's really what it is. It has special ventilation and a few things, but it's really just a room in the New Royal Adelaide. So the other point I wanted to make was that there are obviously ways that we will use radiation for the community's benefits, but we are actually already exposed to radiation just sitting here. And that there are radioactive sources in terms of cosmic rays and radon gas and a few things we'll talk about which you cannot avoid. And it may be that you may not want to avoid them anyway. So in terms of radiation risks, well, what are some of the things you can do to avoid what's naturally occurring? You would say this rover's at risk here. He's at risk for a couple of reasons. You think probably, actually I remember there was a Far Side cartoon that said Rover was aware that he was an old dog and this was a new trick. But the main reason Rover's at risk, or maybe not, is that certainly the higher you get to the sun, and the same thing happens with aircraft carrying. The closer you get to the sun, the increased exposure to cosmic rays, and so you increase your exposure to natural radiation. Similarly, in earth, clays, there's radioactive sources. I got the banana. I got the banana association straight up. I didn't get the lint one. I didn't see that coming. But certainly, there's some radioactive potassium. There's certainly radon gas that's in soils. And you don't have to read this. In essence, what the ANSTO website in terms of nuclear facts says that yes, there isn't an average exposure that everybody gets from living, and it's from being exposed in the bricks of their houses, etc. You can decrease your risk by doing a few things. You can live in a wooden house, that'll take 10% off. If you live in a tent, that'll take 20% off. If you live in the open, that'll take 50% off. But this is really sort of Simon's point on risk and reward, that, okay, so you've reduced your exposure in terms of radiation, but you've actually opened yourself up to other things. So it's pros and cons. Again, making the point, the closer you get to the sun, the more your natural radiation exposure from cosmic rays. And the area that obviously I work in a lot is, okay, so I think that we are aware that we have a natural radiation exposure just by living. I use radiation and I use radioactive isotopes in ways that actually cure people and help us to do better treatment. This is one of the things. This is a very, very rough schematic diagram of somebody that has a lung cancer. The little green lines is what they've marked as the tumour from a CAT scan, and then when they've applied a PET scan, they can see that actually what they would have treated in the old days before PET scans would have actually missed some of the tumour. The little dot that's off to the side of the figure 8 is probably hiding under a big pulmonary vessel and you wouldn't have seen it. So that patient, because of the use of radioisotope, has a chance of cure. And similarly, the other areas, there's certain diseases. Thyroid cancer is a good one, that just the use of a radioisotope cures certainly very close to 100% of patients with early stage thyroid cancer, with really no side effects essentially. And that means that they produce waste when they come into hospital. What they get in contact with produces waste that has to be handled. That's got a fairly short half-life, so it's something that we can use as in terms of a low-level waste. But then there are other things in terms of, as I say, blood irradiators and things that produce gamma rays, where the sources are a little bit more, need to be handled properly. And we can handle them properly in a couple of ways. I think for me, one of the good things about this debate is certainly we need to get into the complexities of the whole nuclear fuel cycle, all those things. But the other thing as a community person that I've been wanting to see is the current way we handle nuclear waste is really whoever's got it. So, we have very strict ways of dealing with it at Royal Adelaide, but there's other facilities that deal with their own waste, however, and it would be very nice to have a more organised way that we deal with our waste. As I say, we're sending stuff overseas as it is. We're paying very large amounts of money to do that. I think it's just a good debate as to how we could tidy all of this up. And that's the Royal Adelaide, because the other way we could do it is use really good cyclone fencing and a sign that says keep locked at all times. And at Royal Adelaide, we do that because we're really, really good, really responsible. Thanks.